So now we're in the meat department, and this tends to be one of the areas of the store that sometimes can be a little bit more expensive. So it's really important to look at your labels, look at how it's, the price per pound. You can find some really affordable options in the meat department if you just are willing to take a couple extra steps. So we pay a lot more for convenience, right? So chicken breast that's skinless, boneless, or trimmed is often going to be more expensive than a whole chicken. So if you have the time and the ability to chop down a chicken, cut it into smaller pieces, take the skin off yourself, that's going to be a much more affordable way to get some of your proteins. But great sources of protein in the meat department. I always say whenever possible, try to focus on lean cuts of meat. It's going to make sure that you're watching out for some of those saturated fats that come in red meat, in pork, even in chicken. We just want to watch that from a cardiovascular health standpoint. But what's more important for me is that you have a wide variety of proteins on the plate, but also how is it prepared and what's the portion being served. If we go back to the plate, only a quarter of that plate should be the protein component. It shouldn't be half the plate. If you think about steakhouse, when you go to a nice fancy restaurant, you get an entire plate that's an entire steak. Let's flip that a little bit. 1/4 of that plate should be your protein food, and the rest, half of that should be fruits, vegetables. 1/4 is going to be your carbohydrate or grain. So let's try to identify lean cuts. Again, some of those bigger cuts are going to be if you can break it down, make it into smaller portions, trim it yourself, you're going to save a lot of money that way. Another thing you can look for in the grocery store is the club pack or the larger quantities, and then you can break that down into smaller amounts and freeze it and save it for later. Meat can be frozen for quite a few months without going bad as long as you freeze it appropriately. So always also talk to your butcher, talk to your fishmonger when you're in the meat or the fish department. They're going to know what's in season, what was freshest, and that kind of thing. And then if you're willing, there's sometimes meat that's on special. So if you're planning to use that within a day or two, I would definitely look for some of those meat items that are on special. That means that they're almost up to their sell-by date, but make sure then you're using it within that time frame. Love chicken thighs. They have a lot of flavor. They are a little bit higher in fat, but boneless chicken thighs tend to be nice and portion controlled. Chicken breasts tend to be very large. So a chicken thigh is going to be a little bit more affordable and a little bit richer in flavor, which is great. I love ground meats, ground turkey, especially in ground beef. 90-10, whenever possible, look for that like higher protein, lower fat option. So 90-10 ground beef is a great option once or twice a week. And I think red meat is fine in moderation. Once or twice a week is totally fine. It's a great source of iron. It tends to be pretty lean if you can get the lean cuts like sirloin, and also can be very affordable. Ground turkey is also a great protein. It tends to be sometimes dry when we cook it, so add in some moisture by maybe chopping up some mushrooms and adding that to your beef, your burger mix. That's going to help go a little bit further as well. So those are some of my tips in the meat department. Next, we're going to talk about some of the grocery aisles, the canned and grain foods.